Okay, with Rebecca Day Robinson, Tomorrow's Escape is the winning TV pilot from our festival. Really interesting screenplay. By the way, we'll have a link to your website, RebeccaDayRobinson.com. There's lots of really cool things. You got some nice visuals, and you talk about all your projects. It's a nice website. Congratulations on the website, first
Thank
of
you.
all. Yeah, it's one of my
Thank you.
favorite writers'
Thank you.
websites I've seen in a while. So.
Oh, well, thanks. That's awfully nice of you to say. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Well, speaking, because before we were talking, I pressed record. You were saying you're not good with technology. You said you have a problem with technology. Sometimes it's your enemy, but this website says otherwise. It's perfect.
Thank you. Well, I didn't build it. I have a really good IT guy who's like treats me like gold. So all of the ideas are mine. So I can take credit for the ideas and all the visuals and everything, but he put them together in a really nice way. So, all credit to him. He's really good.
Well, there you go. But at the same time, you have to know what you're doing to hire the right person, right? So.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about tomorrow's escape. So we're in the future.
Yep.
The United States is no more, I guess, right? It's something
Right.
that could happen, I guess. And it's kind of like talking about this kind of world that is obviously that we're when you're kind of came up with the story. I guess the question I have is that do you think this is actually this could happen to the United States?
Yeah, I do actually.
Okay.
So I started writing this about 15 years ago. And if you don't mind me giving you a tiny little bit of my thinking
Yeah,
behind
go ahead.
this.
Yeah, I'm curious
So
how you got the
I
idea.
came out of
So,
a,
yeah.
yeah, I came out of a really contentious marriage. And at the time, I was just firmly convinced that marriage was an impossible institution. And it just, you know, it
Maybe a
was
lot of
impossible.
people could agree with you. So yeah.
And then I just read something today. Now, this is really weird. I think somebody stole my idea. I went and pitched this about 10 years ago down in Burbank, California, and somebody, what did I see? It's a film. Yeah, it was a film that was based on contracts, 4-year contracts, just exactly like what I had started writing 15 years ago. And that people were matched up, and then in this film that I saw advertised, it was like they had to part whether they wanted to or not. And in New Albion, you just get a chance to re-up every 4 years or every 5 years. And so it kind of takes the specter of divorce. In other words, people are together because they want to be together. Um, and there's, of course, provisions for children and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I came up with this whole idea of a country without marriage, because I'm
Okay.
like, marriage is impossible. And then, of course, I had to have the opposite to that, which was ConFed, which is like, very traditional, theocratic, kind of basically updated Puritanism, which of course we had in America, a long time ago, but there's still many vestiges of that kind of thing. So yeah, I created the two countries. And then, believe it or not, I had speculated that Roe v. Wade was going to get eliminated, was going to get voted down in 2020. That was what I predicted. And then there was a cataclysmic event that happened in my story. And then states started seceding from the Union. There was a short but brutal civil war. And then the whole continent basically split apart. Did you get a chance to look at the map that I sent you? The visual
Yeah.
of the map?
Yeah.
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 So I
No,
can't,
but it's because I find it interesting because but my argument would be that it wouldn't I guess the argument could be that it won't happen because there's too much money to be lost and uh and it's like you're seeing kind of like two factions against each other, right? But if you're seeing that in a lot of countries, not just the United States, but the United States is such a powerful country in its unity, it just would be hard to like like from an economic standpoint, it would be hard to secede that because people would just lose money and they would lose their base, I guess, right?
You know, it just would take a cataclysmic enough kind of event, which I posited.
Well, we just had one, right? So with COVID, right?
Well, what was that?
We just had one with COVID, right? So
Yeah, but that was more of a slow rolling kind of thing. This was, um, you know, like tens of thousands of people are killed in a domestic terrorism event on National Mall, just before the verdict is presented about Roe v. Wade from the Supreme Court.
gotcha.
A right-wing faction had got a hold of, in the military, gotten hold of some fighter jets and had dropped bombs. There's like 1 million people in the National Mall, you know, and
Yeah.
had just bombed a bunch of people. Tens and tens of thousands of people died. And so that was like the impetus for the secession, and then a really, you know, brutal short war. And then everybody said, okay, we're going to split. Now, interestingly enough, and I'll try not to talk too much. Do you know what happened with the partitioning of India in 1947? Do you know about that?
That they were all I know is that the UK and then they kind of split from the UK, but go ahead. Tell us what, yeah.
Well, there had been this terrible domestic terrorism going on in India between the Hindus and the Muslims.
Okay.
And the British decided that the best way to solve this problem was to have all of the Muslims in Pakistan and Bangladesh and all of the Hindus down in the main part of the subcontinent of India. And so they had the Great Transition. And in my story, it's called the Great Shift, where literally, and this really happened, tens of millions of people changed places between Bangladesh and India. And it was a complete nightmare. It's one of those things that a lot of people outside of India or Asia don't really know about, but millions of people moved, and many lost their lives. So I posited something similar in the North American continent, where people had 1 week to get where they wanted to go. So if you're in the South and you want to be in New Albion or, you know, somewhere else, you got 1 week, pack up the car and go. And so that was part of the prequel that I've been working on. And then did you see my website, my actual website for More Perfect Union? Did you look at that one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Tamara's
Okay.
escape.
So
Yeah.
yeah, Evan's story is the one where it happened 20 years before Tamara's escape. And that's where this young man witnesses, you know, something terrible that happens during the war. And then he swears to save people and not be killing people anymore. So that's kind of the background. And he is Evan in my story. He's the father. No, I do think it could happen. And I think about this a lot. There's a wonderful book called, I think it's called The Americas. Have you heard about that?
Okay.
It's called The Americas, I believe. And it's written by an American author who talks about all the different ethnic groups, cultural groups, religions that formed the original colonies in the United States, and how crazy different everybody was, and how it was kind of crazy that everybody got smooshed into one country.
Yeah.
But that the playing out of all those differences is showing itself now, you know, 250 years later.
I just
So
wanted to be, is it The Americas by Felipe Fernandez Armesto? Is that ring a bell?
I think so.
Okay. All right. No, I just wanted to make sure that it was a reference. Yeah. Okay.
I think that's
A
it.
hemispheric journey.
What's that?
The Americas, the hemispheric history.
No. Let me look. I'll look it up. No, I won't. I'll just send it to you later.
Okay,
Anyway,
okay,
so yeah, he talks about how the Scotch Irish have had an undue influence on our culture. of course, the Puritans, the Catholics, settling in the Carolinas, just this crazy disparate group of people. And then, of course, slavery thrown in there, and how it made just this whole mishmash that never really gelled in a lot of ways. The country, as a country, never really gelled. So all of that to say that I do think there could be a breakup. But I started writing this many years ago, and I was just like kind of seeing the signs. And so it's been kind of freaky. I mean, if you can imagine, you're writing a screenplay and all this stuff starts happening. It's been a little bit disconcerting. Yeah.
Or
So.
yeah, our narcissistic maniac who was recently president could be president again, and then he wants to blow everything up and put, RFK and the head of the CIA and some social media guy who also makes electric cars. His head, you know what I'm trying to say? It's like this, they could who want to blow everything up, and it's more of a class conflict, not a political conflict. It becomes like that's what seems to be happening now. But I guess because you got me thinking, because as we're doing this podcast, there's the Democratic convention, and
Yeah.
basically that there's 20,000 people who are liberal, like Democrats, in one space, I guess, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
the odds are that they're like, so if you want to have something cataclysmic, like, I'm not saying I don't want to have a death wish, basically, you would blow that up, because basically that there's, if you hate them that much, that they're all in one spot. Like, every 4 years is that many people who are politically minded in the same spot, where like a shopping mall, everybody would be different, I guess, right?
Well, and then, I look at, there's going to be a women's march in
Yeah, or yeah, okay,
September.
yeah.
I get really nervous. Yeah, I get really nervous at that kind of stuff because I just have a conspiracy brain. I don't want to.
But that's in one kind of like the DNC is in one kind of building, I guess, right?
Yes,
The march
yes,
is
but
outside.
if you remember, there was a huge march just after Trump was
Yeah,
coronated,
yeah,
and there was millions of women, wandering around Washington, D.C. But the same thing, I tend to be like I said, unfortunately, I had this writer's brain, who, it's like, oh, that'd be a great dramatic scene, that'd make great, but unfortunately, there's, too much of that going on. So, yeah. I have been actually actively thinking about moving out of the United States for a while. So I'm thinking of moving to Canada.
yeah. It's the same thing here, though. It's like, it really is. It's nothing you think it isn't, but it's this. But yeah, okay.
You don't have 370 million guns. You don't have to worry about your kids getting gunned down if they go to school.
No, yeah, I understand that, but yeah,
I'm a substitute teacher, and I'm in the local high schools, and
yeah.
I see the violence, and I see we've had some gun scares. There was a shooting at the school where I usually teach.
Mhm.
I mean, this is just insanity to me. It's that, and it's women's control over their bodies. Those are my two big things. So you may say that, socially and culturally, it might be similar, and there might be, but the infrastructure is different in Canada, at least as far as I understand. And maybe I'm wrong, but
No, but I at the same time, if you're looking at the tea leaves, there's like it's like from just from a political standpoint, things ebb and flow, right? So you went hard, there's a hard right kind of turn, and
yeah.
then look at the UK and look at France recently, where they kind of went back to it. The pendulum went back to the liberal way, and looks like, Harris is winning in the polls now. She should, if nothing crazy happens, poo poo poo, she would she could pull it out, and then basically that's another shift to the kind of like to the middle ground, I guess, right? The thing that
Well, I
makes
must tell you, yeah, I'm much less worried now that she's the candidate,
yeah,
but the problem is there are a lot of really angry men with guns and who feel entitled and angry and they want revenge. So
Yeah, but
that
that's
is
been happening for
hard
a
to,
while. That was the lash. That was the white lash with Trump's victory, right? But
yes,
but
yes.
I can argue
And
that he didn't win, she lost, right? She blew it. So basically, yeah.
yeah, hang on, I just have to look up the name of this book for you, because basically what they talk about is the Scotch Irish culture, which is very much, fight against the man kind of, we
Sure. That's
escaped
like
from
it's
the
been
English. We're going to go sit in the mountains of Appalachia and, like chewing our nails and got really mad. But how the Scotch Irish, that sentiment has moved up and through and now is in the epicenter of Idaho.
it's but it comes down to is that the white male generation lost their jobs, right? Lost their middle class jobs, and they're mad
Well,
about it. Yeah.
well, yes, because they're not, many of these guys are not well educated. So if you're not well educated and you can't pivot, like I've done a
Yeah,
million times in my,
it's the blue collar middle class that was
yes,
the
yes.
Americans
Yeah,
yeah.
they got screwed. I mean, yes, they did get screwed. And I think that government, owes them retraining, owes them support. I mean, absolutely, I think there are things that can be done. And I understand their grievance, but the problem is they got guns. And that's where it gets really ugly. So hang on, I have to look this up.
Yeah, I get you, but yeah. But
Yeah, um, America. That's not it. Do you want me to just send it to you later? It's
yeah,
just,
yeah, no,
it's,
but yeah, so basically, yeah, but I have the Americas by Felipe Fernandez Sarmesto. So
it's not that. I'm sorry. I always get the title wrong, but it's about, it's like, it's something in the title is like 11 countries within America that have, shaped, or 11 cultures in America that
yeah.
have shaped history. So
But, oh yeah,
anyway,
gotcha. It seems like an interesting book, yeah. So
yeah.
basically, yeah. So, but yeah. So there's it's like a kind of like a perfect storm where like a lot of things. It's never just one thing. It's a lot of things that happen simultaneously. Like you said, Roe versus Wade, and then like whoever's in power, and like and how the, like so like it seems like right now it seems like it's almost like it's a financial war. It's becoming like a poor versus rich war kind of thing. So.
Yes and no, but it's very much class, I think.
Yeah, that's what I meant. It's a
And
class war. Yeah.
yeah, more of a class war, but it's also very racial, very
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
racially
Totally.
oriented. And uh just so you know, I'm half Middle Eastern. So, I've always been kind of a, where do I fit and who am I kind of thing. Um, but I worry about my sister is married to a Jewish man and in Idaho. They just moved to Idaho. So and I just worry, it's like rampant and anti-Semitism. It's just, just ugly times. Anyway, but I'm not quite as worried as I used to be because Kamala's message is so different and it is so full of hope and joy and upbeat energy that we have really, really needed for a long time.
Yeah.
So
So American Nations, A History of the 11 Rival Regional Cultures of North America by Colin Woodward.
that's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
That's
it's
the book.
excellent.
Yeah.
And it explains everything. I'm also writing a screenplay about my ancestor Richard Bassett, who signed the Constitution, and he was a slaveholder, but he became a Methodist and a rabid anti-abortionist, and sorry, I said that wrong. A rabid abolitionist. I've got
Yeah.
and on the brain, abolitionist, and he served under Jefferson and George Washington. He was on the Supreme Court. He was a judge. He was, like a really cool guy. He spent the He was a really cool guy. He freed all of his slaves and hired them back again, and then dedicated his whole life to getting rid of slavery. And of course, he didn't. But I'm writing a screenplay about him. And, my thought was always, our country should have held firm on slavery. They just should have held firm that it was one of those things where you let something slide, let it slide, let it slide, let it slide. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't really, yeah, we'll just deal with that later. And it's come back, but we probably should have been two countries, honest and true. It would have been a lot easier, I
Like
think.
during the Civil War, it could have been split up. Yeah.
I think, yeah. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, I think you'd really enjoy this book because it really does explain everything. And
But if you got split up, you wouldn't
just
be the powerful, almighty country that you are now, right? So, yeah,
I don't want to be a powerful, mighty country. That's not my deal.
yeah.
And I think all the,
People
the
could argue that you
jingoism,
hate America by that statement. I don't agree with that. I'm just saying people would argue that. Yeah,
I'm anti-jingoist.
yeah.
I'm anti-jingo, any kind of falderall and fiddly-dee. I don't like it at all. So who cares? I mean, can we just be like a modest, ordinary country? Can we be Belgium? Can we be I don't know,
Yeah.
Austria?
No, the answer to that question is no, you can't. So
That's what I would choose.
yeah,
When I was young, I used to read a lot of speculative fiction, alternate history stuff.
yeah.
And yeah, I started reading sci-fi really young. It really destroyed me. I love sci-fi. I love that kind of stuff. But one of the ones I've never forgotten was basically it was technology, and it was a different timeline. So, technology developed differently and in different parts of North and South America, and different countries developed. And it was just like, I've never forgotten it. I probably read it like, I don't know, 50 years ago, and I've never forgotten it. But that's sort of those little turns in history that could have been
Sure.
made that
Yeah.
or have a completely different reality. Anyway, in Tamara's Escape, I think we're going back to a more realistic way of how the continent should be organized. And I mean, it's not easy. It's going to be ugly.
So to go to your script or TV pilot, it's
Yeah.
a individual story with a macro idea, I guess, right? Like
Oh,
it's
very
you're
much so.
telling
Yeah.
the big grand idea, and you have all
Yeah.
these worlds, and you go on your website, and you're like you have the prequels, and you kind of mapped out this whole world in your head. But the order to get the audience emotionally engaged, you tell the individual kind of journey, I guess, right?
Yeah. Through a 17-year-old girl. And it's funny because, so many shows seem to have 17-year-old girls in them. And I don't know, it just seems like an age where young women are changing. They're kind of deciding who they want to be.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, so we're just seeing what happens with Tamara and the decisions her
I call it
parents
Tamara.
made.
I said Tamara. I apologize. So it's Tamara. You pronounce it Tamara.
Yeah, Tamara.
Yeah. Thank you for not correcting me, but yeah. So
It's like it's not Kamala, it's no, I'm gonna say it wrong.
Kamala.
Yeah, Kamala,
Yeah.
sorry, and it's like Tamara.
Okay.
So, but yeah, just and then it's all, there's pieces about, of course, the parents' journeys and the choices that their families made and how they navigated the great shift. Evan's family was in let's see, his was in New Mexico. And so they traveled from New Mexico up to Colorado, but had a harrowing journey, that's full of drama. And then his wife's family was the Bassett family, and they were based in Chicago, and they also, came west. So there's this huge movement of people, just like what happened in India. And I took inspiration from some of the real life stories that what happened in India in 47. And yeah, so.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, it's like it's funny because we are Western biased, and that seems like an interesting story to describe India, and basically like we should know more about that, I guess. But I guess like even I'm ignorant. I like to call myself a historian. I'm ignorant to that story to its full extent. So
Oh, it's just blood curdling. So they had some trains full of people, just as they do now, how people are hanging on the trains and, going from here to there. They were going from India up to Pakistan, and the train would get hijacked. Everybody would get robbed, and then everybody was killed. And they called them the blood trains. This is real. They called them the blood trains because it was so horrifying. So, it was just one of these cataclysmic things that happened. And I mean, no wonder that Pakistan and India don't get along very well. I mean,
no, they don't.
got all this stuff. And then poor Bangladesh, they're over on the other side, kind of slipping into poverty and, sadness. So,
Yeah. There's a lot, yeah, and yeah, they don't get along at all. They still don't, and it becomes that's the first thing they're taught, right? It's almost like the Israel's and the Palestinians. It's like
yeah,
you're
yeah,
taught something, right? So
yeah,
like those
exactly.
people, right? So okay, so you basically like I said, you've been working. When did you start working? You said you talked about your origin story where you kind of started working on this 15 years ago. But according to the blog interview, that's when you started writing screenplays. So were you writing before that, or would it or how did you get into the whole screenplay kind of world?
Well, I wrote a novel. So when I was
Okay.
still married, my ex-husband said, I don't want to go to the office anymore. I just want to write. I want to, feed my creative soul.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, you can stay home for a while. I make enough money. It's okay. And so I
It's
said,
not
I've
that
been,
bad. That's a pretty good husband. Go ahead. I apologize.
I know. Too bad we're not married anymore, but
Yeah.
it's okay. Excuse me. So um I wanted to write a history. I love history mysteries. So I wrote a book, I wrote a novel about a real life. I see all my stuff is based in fact. A real life history mystery that happened in Ireland, and about an illuminated manuscript. Do you know what illuminated manuscripts are?
No, describe to us what it is.
Um, they're before there were printing presses, there were scribes that worked in monasteries that would copy books of the Bible, and this was the only way that anything could get transmitted.
Okay.
And it was all biblical stuff, so they were gospels, usually the 4 gospels. And it started in Scotland, and these monks did these amazingly beautiful decorations as part of the gospels. I mean, these were priceless works of art, and they would spend a year copying a gospel with these incredibly beautiful decorations. And then they would go and they would sit in a church, or they would sit in the home of a bishop or somebody who was very, very, very wealthy. So my very first novel was about the disappearance of the Book of Kildare, which is a real book that was an illuminated manuscript that disappeared. So I wrote the novel, and I finished it, and I was so excited.
Yeah.
And I started sending it around, and people are like, no, this is not good. You get so excited when you're doing this you're like, oh, that's the greatest in the world. So I sent it to one guy in San Francisco. I used to live near San Jose. I lived there for many, many years. And I sent it to this one guy in San Francisco, and he said, your book's not very good, but the story's really good. He said, how about adapting this for the screen? And I said, sure, because that's my personality. Like, yeah, I could do
Yeah.
that. Sure. So I took my story, and I had never ever written a screenplay. I knew nothing about it other than I liked movies. And so I started writing this screenplay, and it actually turned out okay. It was all right, but it was like my starter. It's kind of
Okay,
like you
yeah.
start small Legos and then you get to the really, really fancy ones. So meanwhile, I was working and I was writing and I was doing all this stuff, and I was going through this tough divorce, really tough divorce. And I decided that I was going to write a story, born out of my frustration and my anger about marriage and everything. And so then I started working on it, and it started off one way, and then I tweaked it and turned it, and then eventually made it a story about Tamara. So yeah, I worked on it part-time for a long time, and then I think I really finished it, oh, I don't know, 5 or so years ago, maybe a little longer.
Okay.
And I had this fabulous website. Went down and pitched it in Burbank. I think somebody stole my idea. I'm not kidding. And but my idea is better. And then yeah, and then I started writing. Let me see. I came up here to the Pacific Northwest. You know what I'm talking about when I say Pacific Northwest?
Yeah. Like
Yeah, so I
Washington,
live
Seattle.
I live in Portland, Oregon. I live right over the river, and I live in Vancouver, Washington, not Vancouver, BC. Um, and I started doing this is something I'd always wanted to do, but and I have a book right here. I have I have little
The
visual
family
aids.
history. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Bassett family history. This is my mom's family. And I had this idea in the back of my head literally since I was a girl. Um, and I started doing research about my mom's family and this one particular character. And I found out just some amazing stories. So I started writing about that. So I still kind of kept in the history mode, but went back to the 11th century. So right now I've got a TV pilot, I've got a feature, I've got, no, 2 features, and I'm working on another, all set in the 11th and 12th centuries, and all having to do with my family, the Bassetts and Kings and stuff. So,
So it sounds like you
yeah.
kind of like took the ball and ran with it in terms of your writing progress and doing screenplays, and you have, like I said, you have the website and you have this whole history. It seems
Yeah.
like it's like this has been kind of like a new birth for you, like a new life.
Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah. Um, it's funny because if you don't have a lot of success, like I don't really know anybody. I don't know anybody in Hollywood. I have a bunch of contacts in England and Scotland now, and I'll tell you about my latest project. But you just keep on knocking on the door, knocking, 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 knocking. And it can get very discouraging. And I kind of got really discouraged last year. I just, I've tried to give it up
Yeah.
like a bad habit, but I can't give it up. So, oh shoot, it says my internet connection is unstable. Oh, is it
We're
okay
still
now?
talking, so it's okay for now. So
Okay.
it's sort of one of the things where you just have to like just do what you love to do, and then whatever
Yeah.
happens happens, right? And not get, I think people get too focused on whatever success is or failure. Not that that's not important, it's just that because but at the same time it's you want results for your effort, right? But at the same time, if it's a spiritual journey, and not to sound corny, but if it's then that's what you should focus on. You can't, there's only so much you can control, I guess.
I worry that, yeah, well, exactly. And that's why, I was so excited to connect with you guys because we're actually doing a little something. So I think I sent you an email saying that I had produced a film. We'd done a film over in Scotland last summer. Did I send that to you?
Yeah, I
I
think
can't
you're telling me.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's part of my, it's a World War II film, and it's also about, I pull my family into it. Anyway, it's based on true events about the Bayeux Tapestry and the Nazis. It's really good. So, but I spent all my own money on that. So don't do that, kids.
Don't-
Don't do a credit card movie like I did. Don't do that.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm really glad I did it. I mean, I really am. But
So you just said in one sentence, don't do it, but then the next sentence you said you're really glad you did it.
yes. Well, I guess if you're my age, you can get away with it. But for a younger person, I would try and get more support. I did get a little bit of money from Seed and Spark, but not nearly enough. I didn't even get 10% of what we needed. So, but I learned an amazing amount from that experience. So, yeah.
Well, it seems like it seems like an amazing kind of journey that you've had so far, and we're going to do a script movie of a scene from your film as well. So we'll have that done pretty soon in the next couple weeks. And basically, like I said, you can always check out your website. We'll have a link to it, and it's fantastic. It's a fantastic pilot. So congratulations.
Thank you. That's very nice. Hey, can I show you one more thing?
Yep.
Can you hold on just a sec? Okay. Let's see. Oh. So I have all this stuff really close to me because it inspires me. But this is the image that I sent you. And this is where Chad has just landed the plane and Tamara's asleep inside.
Yeah.
He knows he has to say goodbye to his daughter the next day. But I had this amazing artist that I gave him a lot of money, but he did a really good job.
Yeah.
But this is just like one of my most famous images of my life. I mean, it's just stunning, just beautiful.
Yeah.
So, I've been part of some really beautiful things. I mean, I feel very fortunate that that I've been able to create some things. I mean, that really still touches my soul and touches my heart. So
Yeah, you're very lucky. Well, on that note, so we'll talk again when the script movie's done. And congratulations, like I said, everything you did is great, and just like you have a great story yourself. You're part of your family history already, like what you've done. So it's amazing.
Well, listen, if I lived in Toronto, I would come to your Wild Sounds stuff all the time because it sounds just amazing. What you guys are doing over there is just super cool. I wish I lived close.
Maybe we should do a venture to Seattle. How close are you to Seattle?
Oh, not close. 3.5
Not close?
hours. No, you could come to Portland. Portland is like
Portland's
10 minutes away.
closer to Vancouver, Washington. So you're on the border, I guess. Okay.
I'm right over the river. I'm going to send you the name of a book if you're really interested in what happened in India. It's just one of these incredible events that happened.
Yeah.
And it's good to know about. I'm so glad to meet you, Matthew. You're a very nice person. And I'm really glad that we're working together.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Thank you very much. And I feel the same way. So let's talk again soon.